run through some of these. If I do agree with them, if I don't agree with them, I will try to think of a player. If I can't even think of a player, I'll just try to make sense of what these Bleacher Report is trying to say. So, obviously first, alphabetical order, we have the Atlanta Hawks, and for them, apparently their most underrated player is DeAndre Hunter, and you know what? I will accept this answer. I think this actually isn't that bad. If you're a Hawks fan, you know that DeAndre Hunter is arguably your best perimeter defender, and when he is healthy, you know, he almost looks like a very young, raw, Kawhi Leonard type of player where, you know, if he finally starts to adapt and round his offensive game a lot more, he could really look like an amazing two-way player someday in the NBA, which would be awesome to see, especially playing along someone like Trae Young. Very underrated. Definitely a player they need to have on their team. I think he will be healthy at the start of the year, hopefully. I have no idea, but hopefully he comes back from his injury. Definitely going to need him on the Hawks. I almost said number 2. Next up, we have the Boston Celtics. For the Boston Celtics, they have here Peyton Pritchard. I can somewhat agree with this. I mean, definitely, you know, Marcus Smart is usually the player you always think about when you think about the most underrated player on the Boston Celtics, but as of recently, and especially now, he's getting paid big bucks like a big-time player. I don't really think you can say, you know, Marcus Smart's underrated or underappreciated because he's getting paid big, and he's getting a lot of, like, I guess, shout-out from a lot of places like ESPN, different articles here and there that I've seen. And Pritchard is a really good, you know, up-and-coming point guard. It looks like he could potentially even start for the Celtics if things don't go well with Dennis Schroeder at the start of the year. So definitely important that he gets good, and I think he will be pretty okay this year. He looks like a very solid player, and they definitely need that for their depth. I mean, coming off of their bench, he might be like their most well-rounded player coming off the Celtic bench, so they're definitely going to need him a lot, that's for sure. For the Brooklyn Nets, they have Nicholas Claxton as the most underappreciated player. Wow. Not bad. I mean, before you could probably argue it being like a Jeff Green type of player, you know, a very good veteran who's been around the league for a long period of time, who's really always shown up. But he's gone now, so me personally, I'd probably argue, I mean, maybe Joe Harris, I mean, even Bruce Brown, I think his name is, another role players on the team who's a very good scrappy defender who I actually really like to watch play. Nicholas Claxton, that was actually a really good player and could even potentially start for the Nets in a handful of games if, you know, DeAndre Jordan isn't really there the whole time. Very good, underrated big man, kind of like Jared Allen, but a little bit more athletic, a little more raw. Definitely could find himself, again, even maybe starting as the starting center for the Nets at some points in time. For the Charlotte Hornets, definitely the best player we've talked about so far. We have Terry Rozier for the Charlotte Hornets, and after getting paid close to $100 million in his new contract extension with the Charlotte Hornets, I don't really know if you could really call this guy underrated anymore. This guy's getting paid big bucks. But I guess it is kind of underrated. You know, he's always in trade talks. You know, we don't really talk about him a lot when we talk about the Charlotte Hornets. We talk about, you know, obviously LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, even now with Kai Jones, he's going to be a big talk of the town as well. People sometimes forget about Terry Rozier, so I think this actually isn't a bad pickup. I mean, maybe I would probably argue Miles Bridges, he's definitely could be, you know, an up-and-coming, you know, maybe even like a 15 to 20 point per game score next season, but watch out for Terry Rozier. That's actually not bad. I mean, he's an amazing gifted scorer. All he can really do, though, but it's definitely what the Charlotte Hornets need, that's for sure. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls, and for them, they have DeMar DeRozan. Definitely, I don't agree with this. I think DeMar DeRozan is actually getting really hyped up for this upcoming NBA season. I wouldn't say he was getting, you know, underappreciated. That's a little weird. I think for me personally, it might actually be, you know, like a Kobe White player, a player that we're now starting very good scoring guard. Now moving to maybe his more true position as a 2 guard. I think that's going to really help out his game. Plus him coming off the bench, getting a lot of load off of his shoulders from being, the future starting point guard to now just a good solid player to have about this really good team. I think Kobe White would be my pick. Cleveland up next. Theirs is Colin Sexton. 1000% no. Colin Sexton is the Cavs' best player. How is he underappreciated? I have no idea. Weird. For me personally, I would say Kevin Love. Kevin Love is being talked about like a bag of Doritos chips. It seems like people just want him gone, traded, bought out, this and that. It's very sad to see where the career has gone for the Cavs and Kevin Love, just because the Cavs agreed to pay Kevin Love a humongous bag from to stay, and he got the money, but now the Cavs are just like, well, now what? We don't want you here, and blah 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 this, and then they're just in a stalemate. It's weird, it's awkward. I want to see Kevin Love play. Let Kevin Love play. He would be my most underappreciated player. Dallas Mavericks, they have here Reggie Bullock. Interesting. He's definitely a good, solid piece of that roster. Definitely, adds a little bit more of that sort of championship pedigree. A player who's been around the league, a veteran. A player who could really help out Luka Doncic, stretch the floor and whatnot. Not bad. I would probably say him, or maybe like Tim Hardaway Jr. even. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. last year was arguably the second best player on the Dallas Mavericks. He is getting paid big bucks now, though, which is great, but I think I would say probably Tim Hardaway Jr., even Jalen Brunson. He's a really good scoring guard, very smart, high IQ player. Probably one of those two. Reggie Bullock is a good player, but nothing that's really going to, I guess, change the course of the Dallas Mavericks. For the Denver Nuggets, they have JaMychal Green. He's definitely a solid, again, an overall player, a veteran. He's going to add a lot of depth to Denver, which is really what they need. But I'm going to actually say Aaron Gordon. I think people forget a lot, even sometimes I forget. Aaron Gordon is on the Denver Nuggets. I forget that all the time. He is an amazing scoring and even kind of a two-way player now, really upping his defensive game. You can play the 3, the 4, he can guard sometimes 1 through 5s in today's NBA. He can shoot the 3 now. He's obviously one of the best dunkers in the NBA, very athletic still. He's a really good all-around player now, is he not? The Aaron Gordon, coming out of Arizona, looking to be a top player in the NBA, definitely not, but a very solid player, and I think also very underappreciated now that, MVP Jokic, Jamal Murray's coming back, the ascending of Michael Porter Jr. I feel like people are forgetting about Aaron Gordon, so I'm going to say Aaron Gordon. For the Detroit Pistons, they have here Killian Hayes, which, I don't know, that might be a little too young in his career to call him underappreciated. I mean, the dude was hurt last year, so can't really say he's underappreciated. I mean, it makes sense because I think we all have forgotten about Killian Hayes, their top pick last year. Now that Mr. Cade Cunningham, the savior, is coming to Detroit, I'm sure a lot of people have already forgotten about Killian Hayes. So not a bad pick. I mean, even their best player, Jeremy Grant, I feel like may be a little bit underappreciated because sometimes even I forget that he's on that team now. He's a really solid player, very solid all-around guy, Jeremy Grant. But I do understand Killian Hayes, not only because, the talent. I'm not sure about that being underappreciated because we just haven't seen it a whole lot because, again, he was hurt. But I think just the importance of Killian Hayes that he has on the franchise, still being a part of the future alongside of Cade Cunningham, might be underappreciated in that sense of that we've just forgotten about him, I guess. So, not bad. For the Golden State Warriors, they have Juan Toscano Anderson, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Very solid role player for that team, and definitely could be that really key 6-man that the Warriors are looking for this upcoming championship run this season. So I think I will agree with that one. Either him, or I might even go James Wiseman, even though he is a better player. Him coming off an injury his rookie year, people are still always talking about him in trade talks. I feel like he's a little underappreciated in that he could really help this team out. So maybe I could say Wiseman, maybe even Andrew Wiggins, but I think Juan definitely has a and we're also forgetting about the injured John Wall, who's still a part of the team. And I think going into next year, it's going to be very interesting to see how they use John Wall. Now already having some established good young players, I think he might go pretty underappreciated because he might just be left out in the dust being that older player who's washed and injured, you know what I mean? So look out for John Wall next year. He might be bought out, and man, he could really turn the tides for a lot of different teams if he goes somewhere different. Could be interesting. Then we have the Indiana Pacers with TJ Warren. That's interesting. I think I will agree with that. I think we all forget about bubble TJ Warren. I mean, that dude was on fire the entire bubble. Really, really, really solid play. I mean, this dude, sometimes in the NBA, I convince myself that this dude could average, 22, 25 points per game if he really, really locked in. He's that gifted of a scorer. I wish he was a little bit better on the defensive end because he looks like he has the frame to be a very good two-way player, but not that much. But as a player being underappreciated, I think yes. I mean, even Sabonis being already an all-star is already super underappreciated. So maybe you could argue him or even Turner. Pretty much everyone on the Indiana Pacers is very underappreciated because they play for the Pacers, who's in a very weird state in their franchise right now. They don't know if they're going to be good, making the playoffs, or bad and tanking. It's a weird spot for them. TJ Warren though isn't bad. He's a very solid NBA player. For the Clippers, they have Nicholas Batum. That's a good one. I think, well, definitely before the playoffs started, it was definitely Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson was absolutely insane during the NBA playoffs. When Kawhi went down, he was definitely the second best player on that Clippers team. I think he's very important, so maybe I would say Reggie Jackson just because when, Paul George and Kawhi come back, and now they have Eric Bledsoe, I feel like they will start to sort of underappreciate, or unappreciate, I don't even know what it is called, Reggie Jackson and his play a whole lot, and they probably will miss it if they do use Eric Bledsoe too much. So you could probably arguably say Reggie Jackson, but Nicholas Batum is obviously a great two-way player. I mean, man, you already have Kawhi, you have Paul George, and you have Nicholas Batum. Those three guys are just amazing on-ball defenders. Now you have another Defensive of the Year candidate in Eric Bledsoe as well. That team is going to be a scrappy perimeter defending team. Wow. We have the LA Lakers now with Malik Monk. 1,000%. I 1,000% agree with this, for sure. You could definitely argue Taylor Horton-Tucker, but I think a lot of Laker fans and people who actually watch Lakers know how good Taylor Horton-Tucker can be if he does get the right opportunity and time to sort of get adjusted to this new game with Russell Westbrook and LeBron and Davis and yada yada yada. Taylor Horton-Tucker can be very, very, very good if he gets the chance. But even the signing of Malik Monk, I feel like was really important for this team, being another younger player, just a gifted scorer. And I feel like if he is just let the reins coming off the bench and just be like Lou Will and just score the ball at will, I think this would be a very good pickup for the Lakers. He could be like an off-brand version of Lou Will for this team, and I feel like that'd be extremely important. Obviously, with this crazy starting lineup again with LeBron, AD, Westbrook coming off the bench, you need some firepower. You have Melo, you have Malik, you have Talon. Not a bad sort of trio of guys coming off the bench who could really just pick up the pace and let LeBron and all those guys rest off the bench, and then when they come back in the game, be perfectly fine. So Malik Monk, I will definitely agree with this. We have the Memphis Grizzlies with Kyle Anderson. Not a bad player. He's definitely a good, solid, all-around guy. He can average 10 to 15, be a good perimeter defender. Not a bad player, but I feel like we've already seen like the peak of Kyle Anderson, so I think that's maybe why people don't really look at him a lot when talking about Memphis. Obviously, you look at Ja and Jaren. Could be very interesting. I mean, you could definitely argue like Dylan Brooks. I feel like Dylan Brooks might even be my pick. I mean, last year we saw him. That crazy defense he had against Steph Curry in their play-in game was really cool to see, and I hope he just really builds off of that going into next year. Dylan Brooks would probably be my pick because, again, we think of the duo of Ja and Jaren. Dylan Brooks looks like he could be a very good two-way player. I'm not saying he is going to be, but somewhat like a Klay Thompson type player where he can be a very good three-point shooter if he does develop that a little bit more, and a great defender. Could look really good. I will say Dylan Brooks. The Miami Heat, they have Kyle Lowry. No, Kyle Lowry's not their to say. That's tough. It's definitely not Lowry. Lowry is, their second go-to guy now besides Bam Adebayo. Kyle Lowry in his leadership is not going to be underappreciated. I will tell you that. For the Milwaukee Bucks, they have Donte DiVincenzo. I will 1000% agree with this. Donte DiVincenzo as a two-way player was very much missed last season. Thank God that players like Pat Connaughton really stepped up into that role and just sort of fit the figure of a Donte DiVincenzo. Now coming back next year, hopefully he can be, still that really good player who can go out and give you 10 to 15 points, but really be a good key hustle young guy who can just run on the court, cause havoc. I will agree with that. Maybe I would argue Brook Lopez, because man, that stretching the floor ability Brook Lopez has on the floor really allows Giannis to really do what he does best. So maybe Brook Lopez might actually be the most underappreciated because he makes Giannis better. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, it says here Jaden McDaniels. Kind of an interesting player. I don't watch a lot of Timberwolves games. Obviously, they're not on TV a whole lot, but I know Jaden McDaniels is sort of a young, athletic forward. Could potentially be that starting power forward for this team if they really want to go that route. Definitely not bad. I think for me, sure, you can go Jaden McDaniels. I think it might even be even of a lesser player in Jarrett Culver. I feel like they've already trashed the Jarrett Culver name and the project of Jarrett Culver being that starting small forward for this team. I don't know if he's ever going to get another shot. It looks like they are very okay with the idea of having Anthony Edwards at 6'4" start at small forward, so I'm guessing that's where they're going to go next year as well. I have no idea, but I feel like Jarrett Culver still has a lot left in the tank. If he does need to get traded to sort of really fulfill his potential, I think he should definitely do that and get something back out of him because, just if you just look at Jarrett Culver, the size, the athleticism, it looks like he could really do something really good. It's not working out for somehow, so I might go Jarrett Culver, even though he's not, the best of an underappreciated player. For the Pelicans, they have Devontae Graham, their new starting point guard. I can agree with this. Again, we're already forgetting about Devontae Graham being a 20-point per game scorer. He was up for the candidacy of a Most Improved Player award a couple years ago. He could definitely come in and still be that really good scoring guard that the Pelicans really need. Obviously, Lonzo Ball played that amazingly well, but couldn't pay him enough. So now they have Devontae Graham, and I feel like Devontae Graham's gonna have a lot on his shoulders. People are probably gonna throw him, into the fire a lot, saying he's trash, he's not Lonzo Ball, defense, this and that. But I feel like he will hold his own. He will do okay. I think he will be fine. You could also argue maybe like a Josh Hart type of player, but he's still kind of young, and I'm not really too sure about that. For the New York Knicks, they have Nerlens Noel. Nerlens is a good player here. Definitely a good defensive backup to an already good defensive center in Mitchell Robinson. Definitely a player that they need. Most underappreciated. If you're really talking about it, RJ Barrett is probably arguably the most underappreciated player because this dude is still looking like he could be a bona fide all-star in a handful of years in the future. And I think a lot of people just still sort of push him off as just, he's just a good scoring guard, this and that. But RJ Barrett looks really good a lot of the times out of the year. Sometimes he has a couple of very bad games, but what young player in the NBA doesn't have that? So I think for a more underappreciated player, sure, Nerlens Noel plays a big role at being a sort of backup, almost a veteran type of big man for this team. But RJ is so important to this team, and I feel like a lot of people forget about him and still his all-star potential. Obviously, they have Randall, and now they have Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier. They have a lot of good wings, and then a big with Randall. I feel like RJ might find himself being, out of that sort of line of sight for the future, when the future is still RJ Barrett. So I might say RJ Barrett. For the OKC Thunder, we have Darius Bazley. Don't know how you pronounce his last name, but Darius is definitely yes, that is definitely the right answer. This dude looks like he is going to be a crazy good athletic forward in today's NBA that can still help around and be around, in the future. Not going to trade him for draft picks, or maybe they will. OKC loves draft picks, but he looks like a very good solid up to the plate, especially in last year's playoff, man. Again, when obviously Ben Simmons wasn't doing anything, and even Tobias Harris had some sort of cold stretches, Seth Curry was like their second go-to guy in playoff games. It seemed like Seth Curry really can hold his own on the offensive end. When he needs to be, a really good scorer, shooter, even facilitator, sometimes being, a very, off-brand, discounted, 99% off version of Seth Curry. Really looks like he can sort of be that sort of almost type of player. He looks really good at some points in time, so maybe Seth Curry, but Danny Green's also really good, really solid two-way guy. I think we all already know that, so that's why I don't really think he's very underappreciated, I guess. For the Suns, they have Cam Johnson. 1000% agree with this. Cam Johnson, I don't need to go into detail about that. Dude is a great young two-way player. I mean, they can keep Cam Johnson around and still be very good. They could even trade him away. I mean, he has a lot of potential, really good sort of trade value. They could trade him away for a really solid player and be even more of a championship caliber player. I think that could be a very good option for them, but I like where they are at right now with Cam Johnson being that sort of just, really good three-point shooter, can kick out very easily, and a very good perimeter defender. He can guard, 1 through 4s, maybe even some centers. Probably not though, but a very good two-way player, and Cam Johnson very young too. For Portland, they have Robert Covington. Not bad. I think Rocco, just because he's not like a crazy scoring player, people think he's, a bad contract, about this, about that, but Rocco is definitely the best defender on Portland, and he was obviously known throughout his entire career as a good defender when he was in Philly, when he was in the Timberwolves, when he was on the Houston Rockets. That's what his role was, and in Portland, hasn't switched to be. He has been very streaky with his shooting from the perimeter, which is what we really need him to be. He's a good 3-and-D player. At some points in time, it looks really good. Some points in time, it looks really bad, but the consistency of his defense is really, really, really good. So that's good. I mean, as a Portland fan, I think Derrick Jones Jr. might also be a good pickup there. I mean, we all forget that Derrick Jones Jr. was one of the key pickups in last year's free agency. That Terry Stotts, thank God he's gone, let wash away during the end of the year, just didn't play him at all. I don't know if it was due to injury or play style, but he just let him go, basically. So this next year, look out for Derrick Jones Jr. and also look out for Nassir Little. This might be the year of Nassir Little. Finally, a 5-star recruit coming out of college, coming out of high school, being always, sometimes even a top 5, maybe even the number 1 player in his draft class. Look out for the return of Nassir Little this upcoming year. Mark my word. We have the Sacramento Kings with Rashard Holmes. I will agree with this. This guy had a very good, solid year last year and could have even gotten a bigger bag if he went somewhere else besides Sacramento, but this dude looks like a double-double machine. Just needs to improve a little bit on the defensive end, his hustle game, but Rashard Holmes looks like he can be the future starting center for this Kings team, and he plays really well alongside De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton in pick-and-roll games. Very good, solid center for them. We have Doug McDermott for the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know if I'll believe that. For me, I'll probably say Kendall Johnson. Obviously, him being on the USA team, still a very young player. I feel like he still has a lot to develop, but I feel like when you think about San Antonio, you think obviously about, DeJounte Murray and their guard play, but I think Kendall Johnson this year is going to have a very good year again, playing alongside of really good players in Team USA. I feel like he could have not a sort of breakout year, but he's going to be a very solid player this upcoming year. For the Raptors, they have Chris Boucher, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. That's good. I think for me personally, again, being a Portland fan, I think Gary Trent Jr. is still very highly underappreciated. I think Gary Trent Jr. still has potential to be a great player in the NBA, a great two-way player. I mean, he already scores the ball, handles the ball very well, is an extremely scrappy defender. He can guard 1, 2, and 3s. I think if he just keeps developing his game, keeps becoming a nice, sharp, high IQ player that he already is, playing for Duke and whatnot, I think he could be even a better player in years to come, which is really good for Toronto, obviously. Chris Boucher is a good big man. He's sort of a stretch big. He can play, the 4 or the 5. Is good. Yeah. But I think my pick would still be Gary a smaller forward. I think his defense is what was really good for the Jazz last year. I don't know if you could really argue Bogdanovich, or no, it's Bojan. Yeah, Bojan Bogdanovich. He's definitely a very good player, and sometimes even their second scoring option for the Jazz. But again, people always talk about the Jazz. You think of Donovan Mitchell, you think of Rudy Gobert, you even think of Mike Conley. But I think Bogdanovich is also very key to that team. And last but not least, we have the Washington Wizards with KCP, Contavious Caldwell-Pope. He's a solid player. That's really good. I think I might even say Rui Hachimura. I think, again, a player who played on last year's Olympics, this upcoming year as an underappreciated player. I think could have a breakout year, being the second go-to guy on the Wizards team now that Russ is gone and, John Wall's gone. He's really going to step up and be that next guy alongside of Bradley Beal. Could it be Kyle Kuzma? Maybe. But I think it's time for Rui Hachimura to sort of have a nice breakout year, I think, this year. But yeah, guys, I think that is everything. Again, sorry if I sort of speed ran through these, but again, 30 teams. I can't really talk about them all too long. So comment down below. I really want you to comment down below some underappreciated teams, because I love to know your opinion. And also like the video, like some comments down below if you agree with them, or whatnot. I think that could be a lot of fun too. Just having little basketball chit chats down in the comments is what I love to see. Very respectful, loving ones at least. And yeah, make sure to